Hey fantasy fans, welcome back. It's Dan here with Treebeard Book Reviews, and today I'm going to be talking about my favorite characters in fantasy.
Thank you to my patrons for supporting the channel and making it the best it can be.
So I think what really captures our imagination with the fantasy genre is the characters. There's so many fascinating characters that really hook us into these stories. The stories that these authors write are amazing. But without characters that kind of bring you in, that you relate to, that you mourn with, that you sometimes you despise. But it's the characters that really kind of sell a fantasy story for me. And so I'm going to be talking about the 10 best fantasy characters. So this list, I went through hours of looking at other booktubers' lists of, who are their favorite characters? Who are their top 10? Why did they rank this character? And so I really kind of, using that information, I built my own list I found of my favorite characters in fantasy. Characters that, I love, characters that I hate. Usually these are all kind of antagonists I'm going to be talking about right now. But these are characters that they just have so much expression and they feel like real people, and their motivations are well realized. And I think that's all we can ask for in a great character. So we're going to go on this list from 10 to 1. We're going to have maybe an honorable mention or two. But yeah, guys, if you like the content, please like, comment, and subscribe. And tell me who your top 10 favorite characters in fantasy are. I'd love to hear. So let's get on with the list with number 10. So number 10 is a staple. You cannot get away from this character. This character is the granddaddy of all wizards, and that is Gandalf.
You shall not pass!
He is a staple of the fantasy genre. You can't get away from Gandalf. So well known, so well loved, so well liked. One of my favorite wizards. There might be a few more wizards on this list, but Gandalf is just such a fantastic character. He's very complex and wise, and he really started the that trope of that wise old wizard, where you have the wise wizard taking a character on an adventure. I really like this character because these characters do a lot of work. In a sense, they get to do a lot of world building. They get to do a lot of information dumping to the character who's you're taking along on that adventure. So Gandalf's fantastic. He's very complex. He's old. You can feel the weight of power on his shoulders, and he's just a really cool wizard. You can't go wrong with an old guy with a beard and a pipe. And Gandalf, I feel like you don't learn too much about Gandalf within the books, really. He is kind of well established, but he's still there, and I love him. All right, so my number 9 is Vin from the Mistborn trilogy, or Era 1 Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. Vin is such a great character. I really love her because she really epitomizes the underdog character. Comes from absolute nothing, has not much going for her at the time, but she has such a great character growth and an arc throughout this series where you see her powers develop, her relationships develop, and there's also some really good twists with her character throughout this story. I found her very complex, very real. I know sometimes Brandon Sanderson, especially with his Mistborn series, can get slated as YA. I really don't think it's there. I think it's probably a little bit more adult than that. And Vin is just such a complex character that I'm really grateful that Brandon really included so many things within her, especially her, what she's dealing with, such as like anxiety. And yeah, I love Vin. She's one of my favorite characters, obviously, because she's number 9 on this list. Such a super fan, just a super strong female lead. And I wish there were more characters like Vin in the... All right, so moving on, it is a famous wizard that we all know named Harry. No, not that one. I am talking about Harry Dresden from the Dresden Files. So I've only really read about 4 books in the Dresden Files now. So I'll be on the 5th book. I really like Harry's actually quite a complex character. You're in his head for all these stories. You really get to know Harry's emotions. Just for the 4 books I've been with him, you've really, you've been through the mill with Harry. You've experienced a ton of emotion, and you're right there with him. And yeah, he can come across sometimes as a bit of a chauvinist, and he is a bit strange around women, but he still kind of has a heart of gold, and I really like that detective feel. That he's one of my favorite detective characters. Maybe not my favorite detective characters. There might be another one who's on this list, but I think Harry Dresden's a very great character. The whole series really wouldn't work without Harry. Obviously, you need this character. I mean, this is why the series has gone on for so long. It's been so popular, is because this character is just so bloody charismatic, and you kind of can't help rooting for him. But he's also joined by some amazing support characters that really support him and bring him up, like Susan and Bob and Michael. And yeah, I really like Harry Dresden, and that's why he is number 8 on my top 10 favorite characters. All right, so moving on with the best characters in fantasy. My number 7 is Dalinar Kholin. So Dalinar Kholin, he is actually quite a tortured character. He's probably one of the best character arcs, I think, in all of fantasy, from an absolute villain and monster to a man seeking redemption and kind of paying for his crimes and trying to be a better self. I really love Dalinar. He's such a complex character. He adds so much to the Stormlight archive, and even though he's one of those characters you feel like you shouldn't root for when you learn about everything that's kind of gone on in his life, but you can't help it. He's just he's a man undergoing change, and he understands that he's the only one who can pay for his sins. And I really like Dalinar, and as I said, he's got one of the best character arcs. Oathbringer is where he kind of has his flashbacks, POVs. Oathbringer's not my favorite of the Stormlight books, but it sure is amazing to see those Dalinar flashbacks. Such a complex character. I know I'm gonna say that a lot for all these characters. They're complex. They feel real, and they have these real emotions that you connect with, and that I connected with. And it'd be I wouldn't have this list without Dalinar, for sure. He was bound to be on this list. It was kind of hard to pick a Sanderson character. You know, there's so many complex characters on there with Kaladin. Not Shallan. I don't like Shallan, but there's a lot of characters that you kind of encounter that Brandon Sanderson creates within the Stormlight archive. But I think Dalinar is the most my favorite for me, and I think he's one that most readers would gravitate to, just because of this journey he's on. And love him or hate him, Dalinar Kholin is number 7. All right, my number 6. We're nearing the top 5, but just missing the top 5 spot is Sandan Glokta from the First Law trilogy by Joe Abercrombie. Sandan Glokta, he is just a fantastic character. He's, a former champion, but now he's a tortured cripple who is a torturer himself. And this isn't a character you think you should like, but my goodness, is he interesting. And that's why this character is on this list. He's so fascinating. And this character also is the best. Joe Abercrombie's a master with this character at writing a double speech, where the character's saying one thing, but then his internal monologue is saying the other, and it's so good. He's just one of those characters that just you're constantly on the edge of your seat with what he's going to say. He's so clever. You know he's the smartest man in the room, and it's devastating, equally devastating, to see such a beautiful mind corrupted by the tortures of his body. But I think the character wouldn't work without those, because he was a smug champion before, and now he's kind of been brought down a peg, and he realizes his lot in life. I really like Sandan Glokta. Just fascinating, absolutely fascinating. Just an absolute scene stealer too. But he's also very brutally honest, which I really love. Great character. I think this guy was on everyone's list. When I was looking at these lists, I looked at Alan and Murphy and Daniel Green. He was everywhere, and he should be. So, number 6, Sandan Glokta. All right, so we're actually finally going to talk about the Harry Potter series. And my favorite character in Harry Potter is Albus Dumbledore.
Harry Potter!
I really like Albus Dumbledore. Again, he's kind of epitomizing that wise wizard trope. He's just above he's ahead of his time, right? He's the wizard of his age, the best wizard of his age, the smartest man in the room. Knows when to make a sacrifice, knows when a decision needs to be made, and is doing everything for the greater good. And that's kind of also the motto at the end of the book. The final book is everything's done in the name of the greater good. And Albus Dumbledore was quite a tortured character in the end, where you learn where he had a friendship or potentially a romantic relationship with a character who ended up betraying him, and he lost a loved one. And, he carried that for the rest of his life. And he was always combating the dark, but he was doing it in a way that, kept himself out of power. So I really like Dumbledore. He's a very complex character. He's not really one tone. He's not just this wise wizard. Which he is he is a wise wizard, but he has this past. He has these scars that hold him back, and he was actually quite a sad figure. But he also epitomized love for Harry, the main character, but love for humanity. So I really liked Albus Dumbledore. People give me crap sometimes. Oh, he was horrible, Dumbledore. He did all these horrible things, and he lied all the time. But yeah, but he did all those things. Because he's not as white as his beard really was, right? He's complex, and he made the necessary sacrifices, and it's because of Dumbledore that they won. So yeah, Dumbledore's fantastic, and it'd be a shame if he didn't get on this list. So he's number 5. All right, so we wouldn't be a Treebeard video if we didn't have a Discworld character on here. And my number 4 favorite character of all time, one of the best fantasy characters, I think, is Samuel Vimes from the City Watch series. Samuel Vimes is just he's the best detective character, I think, in fantasy. He's one of those guys. He's such a foil on himself because he hates power, but then he's the leader of the City Watch. He hates the wealthy, but then he becomes one of the richest men in probably the world at this point. But he has such a sense of justice, a sense of right and wrong. He's has love for his men. He has a love for his people, but he won't put up with any crime or messing around either. Samuel Vimes is such a wonderful character. You meet him in Guards for the first time, where he is a bit of a cynic, man down on his luck, just kind of had enough, but he kind of gets invigorated, and it's really with this invigoration and him moving forward throughout the series where he becomes one of the best characters in all of Discworld. You see him in lots of other books. He crops up now and again, and he's a force. Samuel Vimes is a force, and all the Discworld books with that feature Sam Vimes are some of the best. There isn't a bad City Watch book. I've read I guess 6 of them now, and they're fantastic. They are some of the best Discworld books, and the Discworld wouldn't be what it is without Samuel Vimes. So he's my number 4. We're gonna be in the top 3 now, and my third favorite or best character in fantasy is Logan Ninefingers from First Law. So another First Law character here. I had a hard time placing Logan. He's such a fascinating character because, he's this character who has a bloody past. He's the Bloody Nine, for crying out loud. But he is a monster. He is a monster who learned how to kind of control himself in a sense, where he knows he's a monster. He knows he's done terrible things, but he's kind of trying to change his future. He's trying to walk away from that past that was the Bloody Nine, but he does quickly realize that some things can't be changed and you're made how you are. But it's just such a great character. Has some great dialogue, great fighter too, and he's actually quite insightful for someone who you think is just a brute, just a monster of a man, and is absolutely just will kill you in a fight easily. But he's quite insightful, quite knowledgeable, and I just like being around this character. I like being in his head. He's such he's actually quite funny too, Logan Ninefingers. So I wouldn't want to know him. He'd be terrible to know because you don't know if he's ever going to fly off into a crazy rage and kill you. But he's one of those characters that clearly has, the older he's got, the more, kind of retrospective he's become. And I think he's just a great character. And I think he's one of those characters that somewhat you will attach yourself to, without a doubt. So Logan Ninefingers is my number 3. All right, so my number 2, just missing the number 1 spot, the best character in fantasy is Rand al'Thor from The Wheel of Time. Rand al'Thor is just a brilliant character that Robert Jordan thought of. The arc of this character is one of the best arcs in all of fantasy. I will fight that till the end. Rand al'Thor is one of the greatest characters, greatest arcs. Just the forethought that kind of went into building this character and what he goes through. And Rand al'Thor really kind of epitomizes, the power of friends and how you need your friends around you to be successful. And, he's one of those characters too that he really has the weight of destiny on his shoulders, and you either rise to that occasion or let it crush you. And I think with Rand, he absolutely rises to the occasion. One of the best characters in fantasy. I really don't think there is a better farm boy story than Rand al'Thor. Just so complex. This character has so many, just amazing friendships, so many just relationships in general that you just can't help but root for him. He's so engaging. He's so interesting. He is the center of all action in this world. And, obviously, the series wouldn't probably be as popular as it would be without the character of Rand al'Thor if he wasn't really executed well. And I think he was executed flawlessly. Even when he was finished, the series was finished by Brandon Sanderson. Rand al'Thor, the thing with Rand too is he went through so many phases. Like, there's so many phases, like Zen Rand, Steel Rand, Moody Rand, right? So I just love this character evolves so much from book 1 to where he's at in book 14. It's such a journey, and it's a journey that's well worth taking. So my number 2 is Rand al'Thor. So my number 1 is Death from the Discworld. What an absolutely amazing character this character is. He is in every Discworld book except for one. I think The Wee Free Men is the only book he's not in. And he's just such a well-realized character. He just hits every single note that needs to be hit with this character, with Terry Pratchett. Terry Pratchett's an absolute genius for creating this character. And the way he did where Death, the job of Death is quite a blue-collar job, and he's just going through the motions. And, sometimes Death gives up. Death, takes a day off. Death quits. And, sometimes Death has to wear the hat of Santa Claus now and again. But this character is so complex. And he's so human, too. And he breaks your heart sometimes. And your heart breaks for him, too, because, he has to do the job that nobody really wants to do, but it has to be done. And, he is the first and then the last thing that'll be around in this universe. And I really love this character. One of the things I think was, I am on the Discworld Reddit a lot. Some comments that were shared too, where, from people who have been on their deathbed, and they said, to Terry, that one thing I wish is if there is, when death does take me, that it's the death of the Discworld, because he's so compassionate. He has so much heart and humanity within him. And he's just a beautiful character. Can't get around him. I mean, he has his own series in the Discworld. It's maybe not my favorite series, but, he's such a staple, and he's around in every book that you love him. There's no way you can read all of Discworld and just say, oh, I hate Death. No, you love Death. So that's it, guys. That is my top 10 characters in all of fantasy. So if you guys like this video, please comment and like and subscribe, and definitely tell me down below in the comments, who are your top 10 favorite characters in fantasy, or why is one in my list and you're challenging it. For sure, challenge it. I love that. So that's it, guys. That's it from me. We'll see you on the next one. Cheers.